All right, everyone, welcome back to yet again another prospect pool overview, and today we have the Pittsburgh Penguins. So the Penguins, look, they're a team that is, they're on the downturn. There's no denying it. Even though the Carlson trade just happened, really, there's only going to be probably like 2 to 4 more years of the Penguins being somewhat in the contending playoff race, and some may even argue that this coming season will be their last year in actual contention. But nonetheless, there are still some prospects in here that are pretty interesting. I mean, they have picked up some solid guys that they don't prevent the rebuild from happening, but they make it a lot less worse, if that makes any sense. We'll start off here with Braden Yeager, their pick from this past year. Center from Saskatoon, Canada, 6 foot, 170 pounds. He won the Hlinka Gretzky Gold in 22-23. So he obviously has that international experience there. We've actually talked about a lot of guys that have won Hlinka Gretzky's. So it is a very common thing to see those guys play through it. Drafted 14th overall in 2023, of course, as we just said this past year. And in 67 games this past year, he had 28 goals, 50 assists for 78 points with the Moose Jaw Warriors. I believe, if I'm correct, I actually had him, substantially lower than I did than he was actually picked in this year's draft. And he actually, honestly, looking at his stats and looking at his numbers and looking at some of the articles that I've read studying for this video, Yeager could be a possible steal. He has a great shot. He's a good skater. Despite being, a little bit undersized, he still is pretty big for a teenager. He just needs to gain some more weight. That's really the biggest thing I've seen in some articles that I've read. But yeah, I like Yeager a lot. I think he could be an exciting prospect there, an exciting center for Pittsburgh. And he's not going to be, he probably won't be like a Crosby or Malkin level type player, but definitely should be a pretty solid middle six forward and could fill in well in that slot when they retire, which hopefully we're still a few more years away from that, because even though I am a Philadelphia Flyers fan, I still really do enjoy watching Crosby and Malkin play despite, all that. But we're not going to get into that. This is not a biased video. Vataly Puistin up next there. I probably definitely said that wrong. Puistin's from Kuopio, Finland. I definitely say those Finnish places wrong. Kuopio, I believe, or right wing. He's a right wing / left wing from Kuopio, Finland. Yeah, 5'9", 183 pounds. So he's a little bit undersized than others, but he still has a lot of skill. He's actually a Liga champion, which is the Finland League. He won that in 18-19, so he's a little bit of an older prospect. Drafted 203rd overall in 2019, and in 72 games this past year with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, he had 24 goals, 35 assists for 59 points. So he's obviously a great passer, a great scorer, and putting up 59 points at the young age that he is, even though he was drafted all those years ago, is still pretty good numbers. And he's made some jumps to the NHL, but hasn't really made like a solidified season just yet. I believe, he technically is still a prospect, but he has played some games up there. Even though he is undersized than a lot of the other forwards, he still is very skilled, handles the puck very well, has a decent shot, good passer, definitely a solid player, and can also play both right wing and left wing, which I think those type of players are very good to have on your roster, because in that way you can filter them in anywhere, basically. So yeah, definitely Puistin is definitely a solid guy in that pool. Samuel Poulin up next is a guy that I've seen Penguins fans hype up. But this year, I'm not going to deny it, even though it wasn't really his fault, it was kind of a setback year. A right wing / left wing from Laval, Canada, 6'2", 214 pounds. He won the Hlinka Gretzky Gold in 18-19, so just like Yeager, he won it just 5 years earlier. Drafted 21st overall in 2019, so he was drafted a while ago. Along with Puistin. So these guys are, were drafted in the same year, just not, have really never they've gotten the chance, but it's just been slower for them to develop, really. And Poulin, this past year in 15 games with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, he had 4 goals, and that was it. And he actually stepped away for personal reasons, which it's not my business to talk about that, but definitely missing a year for his playing career definitely isn't really going to help him out, but of course, the family and whatever else was going on was definitely more important than playing hockey. So I respect that, but nonetheless, Poulin's still been hyped up as a solid prospect over the past couple of years. Should still be a pretty solid player when he comes over, hopefully. But yeah, of course, he did have to step away. But as of right now, he is all good to go for 23-24. So I might be wrong, but we'll find out. Next up, then, moving on to your defensive prospects, you have Owen Pickering, a guy that I'm a big fan of. Pickering is a D-man from St. Adolphe, Canada. 6'4", 185 pounds, so he has that size to him. Perfect there. Drafted 21st overall in 2022. Was he really 21st? Wow. I guess he was because they made the playoffs that year. Feels so weird. Feels like it was years ago, but it wasn't even that long ago. In 61 games this past season with the Swift Current Broncos, he had 9 goals, 36 assists for 45 points. So he still has a good offensive game. He had a big rise in draft rankings when he was first drafted. I remember seeing he was going to be a mid second round pick, and then after that past year with Swift Current, not this past year, the year before, he flew up the draft rankings, and so did his height. He was not that tall before the draft, and now he's 6'4", so he has that perfect D-man size there. He's listed as being a big mobile D, good defensively, still solid offensively, a perfect D-man you want to have on your roster for sure. Next up then, Isaac Beliveau. He is a D-man from Florimont, Canada, 6'2", 185 pounds, drafted 154th overall in 2021, so a pick that was a little while ago, about 2 years ago. And in 55 games this past year with the Gatineau Olympiques, he had 11 goals, 35 assists for 46 points. He actually played with Alexis Lafreniere before Lafreniere was drafted by the Rangers. And his offense was great the year with Lafreniere, but after he left, it was not so good. But then he got traded to the Olympics, and he's played pretty well since. He plays good physical style of hockey, and will probably move up to the AHL is what is expected to happen. So he's still probably another year or two away from being a NHL regular if he makes it there, but Beliveau seen as a pretty solid prospect overall. Moving on to your goalie prospect, and this is my favorite part of every single thing we make. I love looking at the goalie prospects for every team. You got Joel Blomqvist, I believe I said that right, goalie from, Usikkahepi. I believe I said that. I'm going to put it on the screen so you guys can see it. But from there in Finland, he's 6'2", 183 pounds, drafted 52nd overall in 2020, so, a while ago. And again, I always talk about all these videos saying that goalies will take a little bit to get there, it'll take a little bit to develop, and, he might not be there just yet, but he definitely looks promising. In 21 games played this past year with the Karpat, which is the Liga, Finnish league, he had a 6-5-8 record, a 2.29 goals against average, and a .907 save percentage. He's listed as being a very calm and calculated goalie, but of course, as I would expect with a lot of the goalies we've talked about, Blomqvist could be a little ways away before he gets to that spot where he can play in the NHL. But I'd say still probably another 1 to 2 more years. The expectation is probably for him now to come over to the NHL, but I have seen on Elite Prospects he's going to play another year in Finland, which isn't a bad move, not necessarily, but we'll see what happens there with Blomqvist. But we still got a ways away to find out, of course. Other prospects in the pool for Pittsburgh, you got forward Tristan Brose, goalie Philip Lindbergh, forward Zam Plot, and forward John Gruden. Guys I don't really know too well there, all due respect to Pittsburgh. So, yeah, their pool is not the strongest in the world. In fact, it's one of the more weaker ones. But, of course, there are still some solid gems. I like Yeager and Pickering a lot. And, some of those guys could not even be prospects next year. They could make the jump to the NHL. So, of course, we'll find out when we do this next year. But regardless, thank you all for watching. If you enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and down below. I really appreciate it. I believe the Stanley Cup champions are next. So, we'll do that tomorrow. But regardless, thank you all for watching. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.